Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm excited about today's event. We're going to be talking about how, hi, Bevin, you're here. Good, good, good. I'm going to make you a co-host. So welcome, everybody. And we'll keep everybody but me and Bevin on mute for now. So just wanted to kind of introduce myself and today, since we're doing something a little different today. So I'm Julie Bieland, and I'm a psychotherapist, and I am a founder of Sensitive Empowerment. And so every week we do live events in our community, and it's amazing. We have guest speakers like we do today. And every guest speaker I have is an HSP themselves. They have the trait of high sensitivity as well. And but today we're opening up the for open at high sensitive people. So really you kind of share what we do every week in this community. We just have the most amazing events, and I'm really excited about today's especially. Our topic today is shifting from overstimulation to sensitive sanctuary, the importance of our physical environments. And it's with Bevin Niemann, and I'm super excited to have her because she's very knowledgeable. She's a mentor and coach for highly sensitive, empathic, and intuitive leaders. She is the host of the Shift Network's Evolutionary Empath Global Summit, which last year reached an audience of 33,000 from 105 countries to advocate for our sensitive way of being. Her writing has been featured on Medium, Spiritual Biz Magazine, Mind Body Spirit Network, and Conscious Reminder. And I would love to welcome Bevin today. Hi, Bevin.
Hi, Julie. I'm so excited to be here and just checking, make sure you can hear me okay.
Yes, yes. And hopefully I can hear you well, and hopefully you can hear me well.
I can. And thank you for inviting me on to talk about something that is so near and dear to my heart and so exciting to share with your community and with your listeners.
Oh, I love it. I just love the idea you had to share this, because I think that, you know, we concentrate a lot on the idea of us having a sensitive nervous system and how do we really calm that sensitive nervous system. And I love that you're identifying things in the physical environment that can help that. And before we kind of get started, I've decided I want to start something new. And I thought it would be really fun to have you kind of have my presenters just name something that you love about being sensitive.
So, part of my background and why I'm so drawn to this is that I was a landscape designer for 10 years, and we're going to talk a little bit about super senses in just a little bit, but my super sense is being visual. And so you see I have all these textures and colors, and I love being able to see all the nuances in the world and appreciate an absolutely gorgeous sunset. And I just love the visual aspect, being creative. So that part of me just, continues to flourish and come out. And this sensitive sanctuary is a part of that process.
Oh, that's so pretty. I like your background. It was like, it made me feel good, like looking at it. I was curious about what your home would be like, since I know that you're really into this. And I think that it's going to be really fun today to talk about it. And I know I saw some of the notes about what you're going to be sharing today, and I just think it's going to be so interesting for all of us to learn from you today.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So how would you like to get started? Would you like to just kind of share a little bit about like why highly sensitive people might be more reactive in their environments?
Yeah, actually, if it would be okay, I would love to share. I know we still have some people that are coming on, but I would love to share just a short exercise, because what I really believe is that our physical environment is really important to us, but sensitive sanctuary actually begins within. And I know for myself, as a highly sensitive person, I can often be way up in my head, or because I'm really intuitive, I'm in my intuition. So just really like coming back into our body, like that's what came to me this morning is we can often just be floating off somewhere, and then just coming back into our body and kind of being grounded and centered and allowing that to help us get into this space where we can have this beautiful dialogue today. So everyone who's listening, I just invite you to close your eyes for a moment, and wherever you're sitting, just allow the chair below you, the couch, wherever you are, just allow that to support your body. You know, oftentimes we feel ourselves like holding ourselves up, being really tense, and you're just inviting yourself to be held. This is part of what being in a sanctuary space is allowing yourself to be held and to be nurtured. And just feeling each of the muscles, the main muscle centers in your body, just starting to relax and unwind. And take a moment just to breathe in to your head space, right? We're very familiar with this space. Our depth of processing is very strong. So just breathe in for a moment, providing vital oxygen and nutrients to your sensitive, powerful brain, just breathing into that space. And then allowing yourself to float down into your throat and just breathing in here to your throat, letting that oxygen come down and enter in. This is the place where we learn how to speak what is true for us into the world. Just breathing into your throat. The place where we learn how to hold strong boundaries about what we need, what we want, what we don't want. And then allowing yourself to float down into your lungs and your heart space, just breathing into the top of your lungs. Feeling the heartbeat, the rhythm, as it delivers life-giving oxygen to all parts of your body. Sensitive people have such a deep, heartfelt connection to others, to the world, to animals, for each other. Just breathing into your heart. And then dropping down once again and just breathing into your belly. Allowing your belly to fill, allowing any emotions to be acknowledged. Just inviting yourself to come into this calm, still, centered place as we connect in community today. And then dropping down a little further just into your pelvic floor, just breathing all the way to the bottom of your body. Feeling rooted and grounded. Telling your inner child that I am safe, I am nurtured, I am held in this moment. And one more time, dropping all the way down into your feet as they sit firmly on the floor and connect down into the earth. And just breathing in the earth on the floor, up through all aspects of your body. And at any time when you feel yourself being scattered, being way up in your mind, you can drop into each of these areas of your body, just breathing in and coming inside to your own sensitive sanctuary. And when you're ready, we can open our eyes and rejoin each other on this space.
Oh, that was really beautiful. Thank you for that. And I love what you said about how it starts from within. And I think that's absolutely so true. And I know when I'm working with sensitive people, and if they're talking about clutter or chaos in their environment, it's often connected to the internal clutter and chaos. And that as soon as we work on that internal part, and kind of slow our motor down, as I often call it, that we naturally want to have, it's like we get energy and we naturally want to have a space around us that matches our internal world. So as we become calm, we want our environment to be calm and soothing. I love that you mentioned that.
Yes, I mean, the ancient principle, one of the ancient Hermetic principles is as above, so below, as within, so without. And so I realized, back in my 20s that my external environment was very chaotic. And I realized that was actually a mirror and a reflection of my own internal self. And so the work began even that far back before I even knew I was an HSP on how do you balance and get those two things into alignment. So part of Sensitive Sanctuary is realizing that you deserve to have a space and environments that nurture and uplift you. There's a worthiness to that we don't just have to suck it up and deal with things that are overstimulating, things that aren't working for us. And of course, sometimes making those decisions is not easy and it takes some time to make those adjustments, but that we are absolutely worth making those adjustments, both internally and externally for. And the reason I think this is so important, Julie, is because we have depth of processing, because our brain and nervous system is biologically wired to take in more stimulus. We absolutely need to have spaces in multiple places in our lives where we can just be understimulated in a way, just bring all of that energy down and just relax. And of course, the most evident space for that would be your home. But today we'll also talk about how to do that in the car and at work and, and getting those spaces wherever you can, just to go, okay, I'm just kind of bringing this all back. I'm coming back into my body. I'm relaxing my nervous system. I'm letting the heart rate slow down. I'm breathing. And I'm just coming back to center again. So this is why it's so important, for sensitive people to create this inner sanctuary and the outer sanctuaries for themselves.
Yes. Oh, and I love that you're bringing this up because we have control over some of this. I think a lot of us, and I think most of us can attest to as sensitive people, that we have spent time in our lives feeling very out of control, and to feel like there's different things that we can do about it is so helpful. And I love that you're going to cover the different areas. So you even talked about cubicle stuff, and I think grocery store, homework, all of it it's going to be really helpful for us to learn from you. So we really appreciate you being here to share that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things we want to talk about was super senses, right? And what I've noticed about myself and for other sensitive people that I work with is that everyone seems to have like a dominant sense of the five senses. And then maybe a couple of others that are also a little more activated. And as I spoke before, mine is visual. So while I love pattern, I love color, if you were to look around my home, you would see that there's only one picture on each wall and then a lot of white space around it. Because what happens is my eyes are continuously looking at all the nuances, right? We notice all the subtleties, and sometimes that's too much. I need less to look at. So having some blank space for me is really helpful. For other people I know, that it is the auditory, right? It's the sound. And sound can either be very overwhelming, very overstimulating, or it can be really nurturing or uplifting. Or, I spend a lot of time in silence, for example. And now that I work from home, which is such a gift and a blessing, when I go out into a space that's much more noisy than what I create for myself, I realize I'm actually more overstimulated more quickly by that because I'm not used to having that level of noise. For other people, it's smell, right? It's how things smell. So smell can be the uplifting or it can be really overpowering and overwhelming. And then touch, we all know that like fabrics on our skin, the blankets we surround ourselves with. I have a funny story. I purchased this new comforter for my bed recently, and it came with a set of sheets. And so I was like, okay, I'll put them all on together. They all match. And the sheets were a little too small, so it kept falling off, and I would wake up in the morning like in a cocoon, right? and the sheets were kind of scratchy. And one day I finally just sort of like ripped them off the bed, and I went, no, nobody's going to give me a medal for being a martyr. And I went back, I had bought these sheets about 3 or 4 years ago. They're like the Egyptian cotton, the like high thread count. And I put them back on, and then the next day I got into bed and I was like, oh, thank you so much. And so, all these things they matter. And I think in the past I thought to myself, well, that's just superficial. And why would I spend money on that? And now I realize if I can sleep so much better because the fabric feels nice and I'm not worried and waking up in the middle of the night feeling something scratchy touching my skin, everything gets better for me. And it's these small little things like investing in a really nice pair of sheets or whatever you need to do, better lighting or whatever that is. It's actually really, really life-changing when we do these small things.
I totally agree with you on everything you just said. I think I'm so picky about, I like silence too, unless it's the birds outside. I like listening to them, but I'm the same way about my bedding and the lighting. I'm very particular about that. If I'm like somewhere, I don't want the lighting to be shining in my face. I want it to be like behind me. And I think that, it's, as a sensitive person, it's so good for us to understand that this is a real thing. It's not us being picky, that this is a real thing. And it's really interesting is that when you are able to slow that nervous system down and lower your stress levels, your tolerance actually increases. And therefore, like when you're really stressed and overwhelmed and overloaded, your tolerance decreases. So you become even more sensitive than you are normally. Sort of as a baseline. Have you noticed that?
Oh yeah, I was actually talking to my life partner the other day, and I said, I realize now that I'm really making an effort on a regular, not even just daily basis, like an hour by hour, a minute by minute basis, to keep myself in that calm, centered place. When something happens and I spike either up or down, something's draining me or something's really elevating me, I notice it right away. So I realized in the past, I was kind of in this constant state of overstimulation. And then I had no idea this was sort of normalized, right? It became just how it was for me. But now when I go somewhere, and the other day I realized I was really overstimulated. I said to him, oh, the noise is really overstimulating. And he said, you really hadn't talked about that before. And I said, well, I'm starting to notice that as I build this quietness within and the quietness without my environment, that anything that changes comes up very quickly, and then I can see and I can take care of myself in that moment right away.
Yes, I love that you're talking about that. That's so true. It's so helpful because I think a lot of sensitive people don't even realize that it can get better. It's like we've been living so long with overstimulation, you can't even imagine that you could be in a calm space. But doing different things like what you're going to be talking about today can really help. And I'm the same way what you're talking about it. I do a lot more work from home now, and it allows me to fill up my energy tank more often and sort of go out into the world and handle the overstimulation of the world better. As my partner will joke and be like, do you want to go do such and such? And then, in the past I would have said, no way. And now I'll be like, okay. It's always like surprising because I have more stability and calm. I've calmed my nervous system more. And I like what you were talking about, that if you pay attention, you can keep that balance, kind of closer, and you notice like, oh, I'm starting to get off balance. I'm noticing it sooner so I could bring myself back and do the things that make me feel better.
Right.
Yeah.
But I know that like everyone who's listening does not work from home. As a matter of fact, probably the majority of people don't. And so I wanted to share a story, my cubicle story, right? So I was a landscape designer for 10 years, and I started work at 6:30 in the morning, which did not really, as I look back, didn't work for me. I'm a night owl, so I actually am more energetic in the evening, and I think everyone has these sort of natural rhythms, and each person's rhythm is different. But in any case, I did this for 10 years, and I would go in, and there would be 50 trucks and people moving lawnmowers and putting gas in them so I could smell the gas, and all these crews needed specific equipment and things that needed to go before they left. Right. So I spent the first 45 minutes of my day in this sort of absolutely, completely overstimulating, chaotic situation. What made it nice is I did get to connect with people. So obviously there was some heartfelt connection, and I really enjoyed greeting my crews in the morning. But after that, I went to a cubicle space, which was in a really dark, kind of sort of felt like a warehouse, and it had concrete floors, and the lighting was really bad. And so what I did was I actually bought this beautiful little lamp, and I put carpet down inside of my cubicle, and I decorated it with things, and I had a basket of my favorite teas. And so after 45 minutes of complete overstimulation, I went into this little mini like 4x4 sanctuary space. I put in my headphones. I played some calming, like Zen music. I drank my tea. It was cold in there all the time, and so we always had these thermostat wars. Like my coworkers were always too hot, and I was too cold. And then I realized, I just really need to take care of myself. So I went and got a little space heater, and I put it under there so I could adjust the temperature in my 4x4 cubicle. And I just allowed all of that to come back down after that overstimulation. Everyone's situation is different, but this is an idea. I would buy, live flowers. I love live flowers. And just make it a space that worked for me as much as I possibly could, given the level of intensity that environment had. So these were some easy ways that I could take care of myself.
What a great example to share what you did because if you're in that environment, there's still something you can do about it. I think it's in my brain training book. I share a story of a client that I worked with at one time who had like a cubicle, but they had a mirror in front, and so they were seeing like all the overstimulation of everybody passing by, and the idea of adding in like plants and even a little water feature, like they were able to do stuff like that, change the lighting. It was terrible fluorescent bright lighting, things like that. So what good example. I like that you shared that.
Yeah, I mean, there's sometimes when, we need to work in that space for financial reasons, or we need, we're not ready to make a transition into another space. So it's about how do you get to the highest level of self-care that you can, given that it's a challenging situation, and that's possible for sure.
Absolutely. And if you're working in environments around lots of people, taking breaks that are maybe by yourself, I always say if you can find a tree, take a break by a tree by yourself. If you're working in overstimulated environments, things like that, even a little bit of outside time. Have you found that plants are a wonderful addition for a lot of people?
I love plants. I have so many house plants. I just surround myself with that. I love gardening, obviously. That's why I went into that field. And this morning I got up and I went over to my plants, and I was like touching them. I talked to them. They say that actually helps them. They're a sentient being, is my belief. And so, and also plants are really great in an indoor environment because they help clean the air. And we are, in some ways, we are exposed to things like off-gassing from materials, from carpet, from, laminate floors, from all that. And so plants help actually to cleanse the air, provide oxygen. We actually have a symbiotic relationship, right? Mm-hmm. Plants are the lungs of our planet. And so especially when we have them in our indoor environment, I see your beautiful plant in the background. We're actually like giving off carbon dioxide, which is what they like, and they're giving us oxygen, which is what we need, and it's a beautiful reciprocal exchange.
Oh, isn't it amazing? I love that about plants too, and I often talk about that for sensitive people. Like if they have a hard time getting out, maybe it's winter where they live and it's really cold or something. Bring the plants into your environment. Spend time. I mean, I love looking at like the intricacies of a leaf, even just how incredible and beautiful each particular leaf is that you have. Just the plant itself can be so like what you can, like the difference between just passing by, right, and really like being present with that plant. Mm-hmm. I love that too. I love gardening and plants, and I think a lot of HSPs do.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think so. And earlier you mentioned going to the grocery store, which is something that pretty much everyone has a common experience of that. Although now it's really great, and I'm getting ready to try it this next year. You can order your groceries and they'll deliver them depending on where you live. Some people are closer to that. And I'm like, okay, I'll be curious to see how that is. But what really works for me is to wear headphones and to be listening, set up like a a certain music, a certain type of music on my phone. And then I go in and I'm just in my headphone space. And I noticed that I intersect with different kinds of grocery stores in different ways. So some of them are really overwhelming. I know everyone has memes and things online about Walmart and going into these big box stores. So, I mean, sometimes it's okay for people to, I mean, we don't have to limit ourselves just because we're a sensitive person. It's like, I can't go there. But I do actually prefer to go to some of the more holistic natural food stores. And of course, I'm very grateful and blessed to be able to do that because I like to smell the produce. I like to take my time. I like to go at like 2:00 on Tuesday afternoon because hardly anyone's there. And I'm not trying to navigate around carts. And so I think the grocery store can be a place that we can navigate very successfully. And I've learned that instead of having the mindset like, oh, I have to go and mingle with all these people I don't know, and it's going to be overwhelming, and then everyone's going to be standing in line, I can make it an experience that I actually enjoy. I'm like, oh, I'm seeking out really nourishing food for my body, and I'm smelling the grapefruit, and and I go into the floral department and I kind of get lost in there for a while. So I think even going to places like that, you can find a way to really enjoy and bring and actually take advantage of our sensory sensitivity.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you're sort of absorbing the positive part of the sensory experience, the sensory sensitivity that we have. And I'll just say I'll read a quick chat that came in. Monica was saying that she works in an open plan office and recently invested in noise canceling headphones, which have been helpful and 100% worth the money. So yeah, I think thinking about the different senses of what works for you really can make a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. I love it. So tell me a little bit more. What do you think is helpful to share?
Well, going to restaurants is another piece. And, and what I decided for myself is that, first of all, I would pick restaurants that I like the ambiance. I like the menu, obviously. I look at all of that ahead of time. I look at reviews. It's really great that you can go online and you can actually see pictures of what it looks like inside. You can see when it's the busiest and when it's the slowest. And I like, especially for me personally, I like to go to small, like family-owned restaurants because I want to support them as a small business owner myself. But also, they tend to be like have better service maybe than some of the chains. But I've been in many, many restaurants, and what always overstimulates me is the level of the music that they have. Yeah. And what I've started to do is say, it's okay for me to ask the server, would it be possible to turn the music down a little bit? And
I've absolutely done that.
And I will say that probably is 75% of the time, like they look surprised at first, and then about 75% of the time they'll go back and they'll do it, and then I go, because I'll say, well, I'm having trouble like hearing the person that I'm with, could you turn it down just a little bit? And of course I know why they do it. They want, the tables to turn over, and they want more people. They don't want you to sit forever and ever. But if I go in the off times, I don't feel as bad about that. And of course I try to tip and be generous with their time and space because they have expenses as well. But that's one of the things I started doing, and it really helps me. And then going in and just asking for like the table or the booth that feels right for me. I look around, how we do pause to check when we come into a new environment. And I'm like, that over there feels really good from a lighting perspective. It's a little farther from the kitchen, so people aren't going to be coming and going. We need to use those observational strengths we have as an HSP.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I so relate to what you're saying. I'm kind of known for like, okay, Julie's got to be the one to kind of pick where to sit, because I'm thinking about all those details too. It's like I either want to be by like a wall or the window, instead of having like the 360 degree, like sound. Before I knew about this, if I sat in the center of a really busy restaurant, I was so overstimulated by the end of that meal that I didn't even, I would feel really irritable afterwards, even just feel bad. And I can say even this over the weekend, I took my boys out for a meal, and I was thinking about like, okay, where can we go that is like not too loud? The the volume of because each kind of restaurant also has like a different volume depending on what they have in their environment and how it's absorbing the sound, and always try to go at off hours. That is my absolute favorite thing to do is go at off hours where it's quiet and not too loud. But I love what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I saw that Kathleen shared, I do all of this in a restaurant and I don't want the air conditioner vent blowing on me. So yes. And then M says carpeting tends to be more quiet as well. So
Yes.
like really kind of assessing what the space is. And then if you find a favorite space, going back and knowing that you have a space that you really love. And but I'm also a high sensation seeker, so I like to go to different places and try them.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, I like to try new places. Absolutely. That if you have that ability to go at off times, I mean, it really does help your experience as a sensitive person a lot.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
to move, if you sit in a spot that's not good for you, to advocate for your needs, to just be like, can I move my table? I mean, that's important too for you to enjoy your experience.
Absolutely. So we kind of covered like some public spaces. Maybe we kind of start to come back into the home space now, because I know that a lot of people are really interested in that, and I'm sure have different tips. So it's so great that everyone who's tuning in is like chatting and sharing like what their tips are. That's how we learn from each other. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, feel free to.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the key elements of a sensitive sanctuary, especially from a design perspective, right? And so the sanctuary, as I define it, is a healthy respite away from the outside world. And there's a difference between isolating ourselves kind of from a fear-based place, like everything's going to be overstimulating, I can't go out in public, I'm just going to stay home. And I did that for many years. Before I realized I was an HSP, I was really a hermit. I had very few friends. I didn't invite anyone to my house. I just kind of like hid myself away. And it was okay that I do that. I'm not beating up about on myself about that. But there's a difference between that and like deliberately choosing when we have our downtime and deliberately choosing when we have our connection time. And so, that's just kind of, for me, getting into a healthier space of knowing, yes, I like to work from home, and there's a whole lot of time that allows me to write and to be creative, and I'm an introvert. And so that really helps me. And then I get to do really cool things like this, which is connect with you and your community as well. And I need both of those things, and that's healthy for me to have that balance in my life. So we want a respite, but we don't necessarily want to isolate and put up walls, because that keeps out the good stuff too, the good people that we can really connect with and have meaningful friendships and conversations with.
Yeah, I like that you're bringing that up and kind of clarifying the difference too, because I think that's absolutely important. If we're consciously spending time at home in a sanctuary space to really restore, to rest our systems, to really restore, that's very different than cocooning. I used to do the same thing before I knew about the trait. I would cocoon. How soon can I get into my room and close the door and just block out the world because it's too overstimulating? And that was a very different place. That can be lonely. That can lead into feelings of depression, lots of things. So that making that choice, like you said, is so important, so that you can kind of restore. You can even plan out your energy. Like if you know you've got something that you want to go to that's going to be quite stimulating, plan out your energy so that you're rested the day before and after. That's what I think. That's what really helps me and a lot of sensitive people to be able to still do the things that you want to do, but find that balance of resting yourself in between.
Yeah, I call it like learning on what your cycle is, like how many days or how many things can I be out in the world, and then how much time do I need? And it's kind of an experimentation, and then you basically you come into this understanding of like how long. If I'm going to go to a day-long event, I might need 2 days afterwards to sort of just be quiet, take naps, do some low-key things. If I'm just going to something for an hour or two, I can probably like bounce back pretty quickly. So
yeah, and it's important to not feel guilty about that, because guilt is draining. You're not going to restore if you feel guilty. And I think spending time in environments like this, talking to other sensitive people, really starts to make you normalize your own experience, so that you're like, oh yeah, we all are like this, and that's okay. If you need a nap, take a nap. If you need a break, take a break. If you need to say no, say no. to something if you can't go to it. And Annie says, speaking of cocooning, thanks for the information on the weighted blanket. Mine came in and feels like a big hug from the universe. Oh, I love my weighted blanket so much. Do you have one of those, Bevin?
I don't, but I've been looking at that, and it's great to hear other people's experiences with that.
It's really calming. It's just like it's one of my favorite things to just snuggle up with my weighted blanket. And they come in all kinds of different weights and sizes. And some people like I ended up really liking one where it wasn't as big, like my feet kind of stick out because I might get too hot. But I can cover up most of parts of my body, and it just feels really good. It has to do with, it actually has a scientific effect on your body where you can actually feel more calm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sort of like being in the womb, or like literally in a cocoon where you're held. The way they swaddle babies, right? Is that the whole idea?
Yeah, and the proprioceptors has a lot to do with that too, like how they swaddle the babies, like you were saying. It gives you a really calming feeling. They come in different kinds of weights and stuff. Yeah, Annie was saying I feel grounded. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point, Annie. It is very grounding, the feeling. It's a good grounding technique for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things I wanted to share was color. Color has a vibration, right? It hits our eyes, and it has a specific vibration, and everyone is attracted to different colors, and the colors you're attracted to may change over time. So it's really funny because today I'm kind of in this green and in burgundy stage, right? And of course that's very apropos for the holiday season. And that was kind of something that I was really into when I was in my 20s. But more of my home is actually sort of this deep coral and a turquoise kind of blend. But everyone has, different colors, and color, can either be really vibrant and uplifting, or it can be really calm and mellowing, or it can be neutral. So, I think color, it really is therapy. It really is. There's a psychology behind that. I don't know. What colors are you attracted to, Julie? What's coming up for you right now?
Oh, it's interesting how you were saying, I was thinking about, how interesting that color can change over time. And I absolutely think that's true. And it was interesting when we were choosing the paint for the interior of our home. Of course you walk into a paint store and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. There's so many choices. How can we possibly choose? And I felt a little overwhelmed. And so we kind of narrowed it down to a few. And then I thought it was so fascinating that my partner was like, I want to just spend some time just standing in front of this color and see what it makes me feel like. And I was like, wow, that is so interesting. And the color that we ended up choosing is very calming. And it's like people even talk about that when they come visit our home, that we have a really calming feeling in our home. And it's amazing that color can do that. But color can make you feel calm, or can make you feel more stimulated, or different things. I love it.
Right. Yeah. So here's a couple of tips for that. You go to the paint store and it is overwhelming. And I know that I bought gallons of paint and I put it on the wall and I went, oh, that's not good. That feels really off. And then I go back and I'm picking a different color. Even as an artist, like I've done that. So here's a couple of tips. When you stand in front of that whole bank of swatches, right, kind of blur your eyes a little bit and just allow your eyes to scan over and see which areas you're drawn to. There's going to be some areas that feel better for you and feel worse, and then kind of go towards that section, right? Maybe it's the pinks and corals, or maybe it's the blues, or maybe it's the purples. And you just kind of like use your intuition and what feels good for you. And you sort of go, instead of looking at each one, because they all have names, and then we have associations with the names of the colors, and that's a good way to get started with that. The other piece is that they make these little tester pots. They're maybe like this big, and you can have that color mixed up. And you can literally just get a paintbrush and like a $2 a thing of paint, and make a swatch on the wall, like a 2x2 swatch on the wall, and do what your partner was suggesting, which is just sitting there and going, do I like this? Would I like this in the whole room? Because it's so hard on a little tiny paint chip to see like what it's going to be. So this is a very easy way to try things out and be like, oh, that works. No, that's not it. You can even get, if you're going to do 2 colors or 3 colors, you can put them right next to each other and you can kind of see how that all feels. So this is a really easy way to choose color. So I think that's really important. And Monica's saying, could calming colors also apply to the desktop background on your computer? I think I might change mine to be more calming right now. Absolutely, because we're so on our computers for so much time. And the images I put on there, sometimes I put a humorous image, sometimes I put a calming image. Sometimes if I feel like in a stage where I'm doing more work on my business, I'll have something that's more invigorating. So I think we can change that over time, and the colors and the textures and the imagery to uplift or even move us into kind of a different space.
Yeah, what you're exposed to, right? Like you can choose that on the background of your computer. I remember one of my favorite things I did in an apartment one time, and I've been wanting to do this again, is I had like this, it was almost like a decal, but it was just this beautiful like branches, because I'm obsessed with trees. So I was like, I had this, talk about a sanctuary. I had like my little meditation cushion, and then I had this beautiful like trees going up onto the wall, and it was still one of my favorite. Every day I looked at that space and I loved it. I think you can even create, and we had a small apartment at the time. And so I was like, I just had to create a little corner space that was that for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like a little nook. That's all you need is a space to like read a book or to get away or to meditate or whatever it is that you like to do.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love it.
Mm-hmm. So then we touched upon lighting, right? So lighting can be warm. It can be fluorescent. I don't think that many HSPs enjoy fluorescent light. There's just something really harsh about that. Sometimes it buzzes, right? So we hear that.
Oh, yeah, that drives me crazy. Yeah.
So, cool, some people like cool light, some people like warm, and now we have, all the LED, and we can make those choices. Candlelight obviously is very soothing and nurturing. And then one of the things that my partner did is when I moved into my new space here, he actually put dimmer switches. It's very, it takes just a couple of minutes. You turn off the electricity at the circuit box. You put in the dimmer switch. The best place to have a dimmer switch, I kid you not, is in the bathroom.
I'm so glad. I totally agree with you with that one. I was like,
get up in the morning and the last thing you want is a super harsh light. Like you just turn it on barely, and then you're like, okay, I can kind of ease myself into the day.
Oh, that is so true. It's amazing what a difference that makes. And candlelight, I remember there was such a long period of time where I was like, I can't spend money on myself. That sounds like candles. It seems like a luxury. I can't do that. And then when I started to actually do that, put candles around the bathtub or something, I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in luxury right now. It's so calming, and so it just changes the entire feeling of the room when you have a candle.
Yeah, and you really can do a lot of this on a budget. Like you can go to the dollar store and you could get little votive, a bag, for $1 or $2, and then you create this environment without having to break the bank. For a long time, I grew up and my family didn't have a lot of money, so we would go to like Goodwill and we would find things. We'd find decor and different things. So regardless of your situation, you can make a sanctuary. You can find things on sale. You don't have to go to the high-end luxury store unless you want to do that, and you're fortunate to do that. You can do it in a very easy low-cost way, I think.
Even make your own candles. You grew up on a farm too, right? We both grew up on a farm. Is that right?
I did. My parents moved to Oregon when I was 6, and we lived we had a hobby farm. We grew all our own vegetables and raised our own animals, and we canned and lived out in the wilderness. It was really amazing. So
it's kind of neat to hear that story, because I actually was born in Oregon and ended up moving to Minnesota because my dad wanted to do that, where we grew our own land. We had a huge garden and would can. We didn't even have running water for a long time. We would melt snow in the winter. It was quite something. I mean, I was young at the time that all of that was happening, and I thought it was great to be out on this farm and have all this land and space, and talk about a wonderful environment for your senses is to be able to be in that kind of an environment as a sensitive person. Love it. I'm not sure how to say that. Chols, but I use candles that need batteries and use rechargeable batteries. They're beautiful and no fire hazard. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you're bringing that up, because That's also really nice. And it's neat because some of them you can do where they flicker, and some you can actually turn off the flicker if you don't, like if you're impacted by the flicker.
Yeah, technology is excellent because it gives us all these options. And sometimes, like if you go to a hotel or you're on the road, like you could just throw those candles in your suitcase and you could still have it, but not, if you're in a space where you can't do open flame or you don't like the smell of that, the smoke bothers you, then you can do that as well. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's actually really nice just to bring a small candle, like an electric or battery operated candle on a trip or something in the hotel room even, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things that's really important to me is room temperature. I am healing from a chronic illness, and part of that is that I get really cold a lot of the times. And so often when I go into places, public places, but even in my own home, I feel excessively cold. And I know other people don't. And so I think I talked about that, earlier, where I bought the little space heater for just my cubicle. Yeah. I have a lot of warm, fuzzy blankets that I can put on or take off with different thicknesses at different times of the year. I think room temperature is, one of those things. When I go out, I have a lot of sweaters and things where I can like throw it in a bag and then I can layer it on. And what I realize is when I keep my body at a temperature that's comfortable for me, and other people may have the opposite situation where they get too warm. So dressing in layers for a sensitive person is great. And then just kind of taking your on the road kit with you, whether that's your candles, your extra sweater, you've got a bottle of water to keep yourself hydrated. And you have a way to make a sanctuary for yourself, like wherever you go, and you can take care of yourself, as opposed to just kind of running out the door. Then you get there and you're freezing in a workshop or something, and you're like, I wish I really had a sweater. So I've just learned to take a few more minutes before I leave the house and go, okay, do I have my mints because I like my mints, and do I have an extra sweater, and do I have these things? Do I have my little, notebook, my journal, in case there's an idea that comes down? Like, what is it that you need that you can carry with you, and then also kind of have in your home as well, that you can just grab and do that easy self-care for yourself? So room temperature is one of those things where you just really have to take care of yourself, because a lot of times you go into spaces where you have no control over what the temperature is.
Good ideas. I also keep a little bag in my car that has everything that I need. I was like, so if I'm going to be out, I have my whatever I'm going to need, and I always carry earplugs with me like in a purse or something with me all the time. Something like that is, for me, is really helpful because I'm really sensitive to sounds. If I walk in somewhere that's, just blasting something really loud or an irritable type of sound, that really helps a lot. I always have water with me. I panic if I don't have my water with me. But it's right. You're right. Just taking that little extra time to have what you need wherever you are is really helpful as a sensitive person.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you get to noise, right? And someone talked noise canceling headphones, earplugs. But there's ways in your home, especially if you share a home with other people and you're negotiating the noise level. I don't have any children, but for those who do, and you could speak more to this, Julie. Children can be noisy. I ran summer camps for many years. I had 100 kids, so I know like what I needed to do to kind of get away from some of that noise and be there. But the way you place furniture, how you have a screen behind you. Like, can you make a screen for a little space in your home? Can you negotiate quiet times, with others in your house? Like, okay, after 8 o'clock, everybody's voice is going to lower and we're all going to like calm down. And I often say, like, whatever is good for sensitive people is actually good for everyone, because even if you're moderately sensitive or have a low sensitivity stimuli, you still need downtime. You still can be overstimulated. So negotiating noise and then bringing in things like wind chimes or your favorite music and whatever that is into the space, or quiet, can we just have silent times?
Oh, that's so important. I'm glad that you're talking about that. And I think that it is helpful if you're a parent or you have a grandparent, if you have around young kids in your home environment, that you can actually teach kids at a very young age to have a quiet time. And I know a lot of sensitive parents will do that, and it's very helpful. It's like, okay, now we're going to have quiet reading or quiet drawing or something like that. And that can be really good for everybody, like you were saying. Annie says, in a class, you mentioned a certain kind of earplugs. Can you remind me, please? Oh, yeah, I think I might have said that in one of my classes. I like Max earplugs, and they're like the silicone ones, and you can, they're kind of waxy, and you can choose. Like, for me, I like them because you can decide, do I want to put them in all the way so I'm really blocking out the sound, or do I just put them in a little bit where I'm still able to hear a conversation, for example, but not be as impacted by noise. And for me too, like in my own environment, my partner likes to have music on all the time. And for me, I like more quiet. So sometimes we'll have to negotiate that a little bit. Or if the TV's on or if music's on and somebody's trying to have a conversation with me, for me personally, I find that difficult. I'll have to ask can we mute the TV, or can we turn off the music for a little while if we want to have this conversation? And just advocating for my needs like that is helpful. And then, kind of being able to share that space, that sometimes I'm in an area where I can be more quiet, and maybe my partner's in an area where the music is playing, and that's how you kind of negotiate what your needs are. And Cindy says, great to hear about what you need to have in your survival kit when going out. In addition to earplugs, I use valerian capsules to calm me down. Okay, yeah, valerian is actually really good for sleep, so that's interesting to hear that it helps calm you too. And I don't know, Bevin, am I saying this name right? I'm not very good with that. Chols or something. I'm so grateful for these ideas. I'm ready to truly support my HSP trait and nurture my needs rather than feeling something's wrong with me for needing different things from others. Yes, I love that you're saying that. That's absolutely so true. And what I think is so incredibly important about our community of sensitive people is that we have these conversations. We talk about what our real experiences are. And because we're only 20% of the population, we are surrounded by 80% without this trait. So it's really common for us to be around people that don't have the same experiences we do, that don't have the noise sensitivity or the temperature sensitivity or whatever it is. So spend time with HSPs. That will change your life to understand, right? That we are so, well, I'm always saying we're so needed in the world, and our balanced, centered self is so needed in the world, and that you can do a lot for yourself to reduce the challenges that you might be having as a sensitive person. So I'm glad you're feeling the support just listening to our conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things I like is chamomile tea. I've liked that since I was a child, and that's very calming as well. So it has, a lot of the plant medicine, as they say, plant remedies can be really helpful and natural. It is important to research them because obviously anything that you put in your body is considered a drug, anything that changes your chemical composition. So it's important to see, how that works for you. But it's a very safe way to do that calming piece. And I wanted to talk about how you can positively activate your super senses because we often know when our super sense is like really, really overstimulated. But for example, if smell is your super sense, you could do essential oils. I know a lot of people are really into essential oils and aromatherapy, scented candles, using incense. I burned incense this morning. Some people like that, some people don't. So it's just a personal preference. One of the things I love this time of year is cinnamon pine cones. So I get or the cinnamon brooms that they have, and then I literally put it by the door. So when I walk into the door, that's the first thing. It just makes me feel like, oh, it's the holidays, it's winter. I know it's probably summer in other places, depending on your audience. But so these are ways that you can positively activate your sense of smell, if that works for you. Or some people may just need no or very few smells at all. If that's what you need, then do that for yourself. Get things which are odor free, or You could get laundry detergent and soaps and things in your home that are pretty much just clear and don't have any extra scent added. So depending on where you fall on that sensitivity spectrum, do what you need for yourself.
Good advice. Absolutely. I love because I think that's one of the positives of our trait too, is we can actually take in smells or different parts of our senses that are it can be so wonderful too, like just smelling a flower, for example, or, it can be grounding to take your cup of tea and just take in the aroma and the feeling of the steam and, the way it feels as you're drinking this warm beverage. All of that can be really beneficial. And I've heard a lot of HSPs carry a favorite essential oil in, maybe they even have, I've heard about, for example, they might put some drops of it, say it's lavender or something like that, or even eucalyptus, something that's more, lavender can be more calming, eucalyptus can be more kind of stimulating, whatever you're looking for. It can also be help with like nausea or something like that too. Or if you're around smells that are difficult for you, you can take out that, maybe you have put the drops of it on, maybe like a cloth or something, and then you can, in a Ziploc, and then you can take it out and smell it if that's something that's helpful for you. But there's experiment with different things that you feel naturally drawn to, right, Bevin?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then there's visuals. So, surround yourself with colors and textures. Texture is really important to me. I have a lot of baskets and wicker. I love that sort of woven, natural feel. My couch is sort of like this soft, suede sort of fabric. Images that are pleasing. When you look at something, it's just uplifting to you. I especially do that in my office. My office actually looks out onto a nature preserve. So I have a bird feeder out there, and I laugh because there's a squirrel that comes every day, and he's stealing, food. And then I have different kinds of birds. And so that just like uplifts me as I'm doing my work. So it's like, how do you use this visual sense that we have? Like you said, looking at the nuances of a leaf, of a plant that's in your home, and just enjoying that and giving yourself the amount of visual stimulation to kind of keep yourself interested and engaged, and then managing not having too much. Some people like a lot of visual stimulation, and some people don't like very much at all, and just being okay with where you are with that.
Yeah. And because I love plants so much, and coming from like a farm in Minnesota, I would love to have a big open piece of land, but since I live it's in a busy environment, that's not an option. So living in like a condo setting, I got all kinds of plants and put them out in the porch. So I created this kind of my own little sanctuary in the porch. I feed the birds. So I've got the birds and my plants. Even though I'm not on land like I want to be, I have created that, sort of brought that into my environment and into my space. And it's really lovely. Cindy says, yeah. Did you know that in Spain they drink linden tea along with the chamomile tea to soothe oneself down? Okay, very interesting. Yeah, because tea can have a really wonderful effect on you and all kinds of parts of your senses.
Yeah, in one sense, I don't think we really talked about too much is taste. But this is where HSPs can be, we can notice the very subtle nuances. I say that most sommeliers, the people who do wine tasting, are probably HSPs because they can tell the difference between the citrus undertone and this was like, aged in an oak barrel and
Absolutely. I think some of the best chefs, my partner's a chef and also an HSP, some of the best chefs, some of the, I was thinking about that the other day, like even, the term foodie, people that are really into trying all kinds of different types of food. It'd be interesting to see research about that. I would assume that many of the ones that are the most talented are probably highly sensitive people with this trait.
Yeah, so if you have like a little bowl with your favorite chocolates or fresh fruit in a basket that you can just grab, or your mints that you like, or teas, or whatever this is for you, or if you like to go to restaurants and try new foods with different nuances, and just see what that sense of taste and utilizing that ability, and taking time to savor. I know when I worked in the landscape field, I drove to all these properties, and mostly back then I was like eating fast food and just going through the drive-through and like scarfing it down in the car. And now when I eat, I try to make it a really special occasion. I try to disconnect from social media and just savor like what I'm eating and take that time. And I'm like, wow, that was really subtle. And and when I'm cooking, I try different things. I put a little hint of lime, and then I'm like, oh, that just really kind of brings an extra zing to it. So we can utilize this sensitivity to subtleties to our advantage.
Oh, yes, exactly. And take advantage of that as a sensitive person and just kind of do the mindful eating, mindful drinking of the beverage that you're having, really taking in all the different flavors. And I think that that's like a form of self-care, to slow down and really just absorb how wonderful it is.
Mm-hmm. And it's allowing your body to do the digestive process in a natural way. I think when we just shove food into our stomach and then it's like, and there's like a big pit sitting there and then it has to process and all that, that's when we get into some of the digestive things. And so allowing it to slowly integrate, to chew and to, make sure that we're providing that nurturing to our body is so, so important. One of the last things I wanted to talk about was like a sanctuary space is just surrounding yourself with the things that you love. Whether that's your favorite photographs, especially like most of my family doesn't live here locally. So I have certain areas of my home that have pictures of my mother and my brother and friends and family. Your special books, we all have those special books. I have a whole bookshelf. It's just all of the books that I've gathered on my own spiritual and personal growth journey that I can go back to. And every once in a while, I'm like, I'm just going to pull one of those and like see what's there for me. And that just feels really nurturing. Furry Companions, we talked a little about plants, but certainly HSPs are very connected with animals. And, I have a feline companion. I say she's not my pet. She's actually my companion, my roommate. She has her own autonomy, but, making time to connect with those furry friends. Anything that's symbolic of your journey, your growth, anything that is really special to you. In my office, I have a pastel drawing that I did several years ago of the phoenix, which is very representative to me of like rebirthing yourself, and any given day you can wake up in the morning and rise from the ashes and rebirth yourself. So things like this that have a really special meaning is what can be in your sanctuary space. So this would be, just kind of adding that last piece of how do I gather these things that are special, whether it's something, when a person in your family passed on to you, a sculpture, a waterfall, like just things that make you feel really great and really nurtured.
Sounds so lovely. And you're really talking about too is this real mindfulness about your surroundings, mindfulness about how things make you feel. I think that's so important. And I think a lot of sensitive people don't realize how special that part of our trait is. We can kind of assume that everybody experiences things like that, but I think it's really particularly special for us when we're being very mindful and conscious about it. And I have to say about my pets, I find them to be just one of my favorite parts of my day. Just even spending time, like I have 2 cats and 3 dogs, and I would have more if I had a farm. I'll have goats one day again. That was one of my favorites. I grew up with goats and they're just so much fun. But just like, maybe I have one particular cat that she just totally snuggles on me every day. And it's like my favorite thing. She's kind of like right here and hearing her purring and just sometimes even just being really present in there, right? Just really present in how beautiful they are. And in there, I feel like I can communicate with them without words. It's just that almost our energy exchange is just so special. It's just such a wonderful piece. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I know a lot of us are very much into our animals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to share today?
I think it's just, it's kind of what we started with, which is taking that time every day to really get back into yourself, come into your body, making yourself a priority and realizing that focusing on your own needs is not selfish. As a matter of fact, we absolutely have to do that in order to be able to then bring our gifts out into the world, to serve, to give to others. If we don't nourish our own physical body, our own home environment, our own mindset, really coming back into ourselves, we're going to be depleted. And so then this is where, like you said, the depression, the anxiety, the feeling physically drained, it comes in. And so when we make this shift, that creating a sensitive sanctuary within and around us is the centerpiece, and everything sort of flows out from there.
That's so beautiful.
That's a big, big shift.
That's really beautiful. And I think you and I both come from this place of really wanting to empower sensitive people to live their best lives, to go out. I mean, I completely believe that sensitive people can really make a difference in the world, and to take care of your own needs first so that you can be in that centered, balanced space is the opposite of selfish. It is absolutely needed in the world, because you're needed. Your balanced best self is needed in the world. And I like how you were saying that, nourish yourself first, because you impact everyone around you when you do that. Your family, your friends, your work environment, it spreads, doesn't it? When you're taking care of yourself, that feeling that you embody as somebody that is whole and nourished spreads. And that's what we need more of in this world. And I think everything that you offered today was just so beautiful, Bevin, and really appreciate your work in the world. And why don't you let us know how our listeners can connect with you?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Probably the best way to find me is at my website, which is perceptivesouls.com. And so, I have a lot of resources for highly sensitive people, for empaths, for those who are intuitive, and what I call creative visionaries. People have a really strong creative drive. And there's all kinds of resources on there. And I have a blog as well. So I've written many, many posts. I love to write, and you're more than welcome to tap into my own journey as a sensitive person, going from being really overstimulated to now coming into my own internal and external sensitive sanctuary. So I was just so honored to be here today to connect with the beautiful people who are in the audience. Thank you, everyone who joined us for this conversation. Nourish yourself, take care. Do those little things, those little simple things that help you to feel good and feel vital and healthy, because we need you to be fully whole and to be able to shine your gifts out there. So thank you so much, Julie. I love connecting with you. You're my dear friend, and just not just a colleague, but thank you for having me come in and connect today.
Oh, Bevin, you are a very special person in the world, and thank you so much. And I'm going to read out some comments at the very end for you. And anyone that wants to, I always like to read out comments about what people are saying, and in gratitude for having you today, just the gratitude and for sharing what you know and what your gifts are, and really appreciate that very much, that you are in the world. You're somebody that, you're a great example of sensitive empowerment. You're somebody in the world making a difference in the world. You're helping others grow, and, the visionaries and the leaders. You're really helping a lot of people in the world. And I think, really thank you for your time today and giving us all this wonderful, beautiful knowledge that you shared. We're very appreciative of it in our community. And for anyone that is interested in learning more about our community, you can visit sensitiveconnection.com. That's my website that shares, I have tons of HSP resources, a link to our empowerment community. The sensitive empowerment community is amazing. We do these live events every week, and we are creating a whole library of amazing presentations from HSP presenters every week. I also do free trainings in there, and Everything is available by replay, which is really helpful. So people that couldn't attend live today can watch the replay, or if you missed part of it, come on into our community and check us out. It's a very beautiful, supportive space. So let me read out a few things, Bevin, that have come up just as a thank you to you too. Bridget says, wonderful, empowering, inspiring shares. Thank you for this time together, Julie and Bevin, celebrating this enlightening and centering time. That's beautiful. Thank you, Bridget, for sharing that. Monica, thank you all for the encouragement and validation, Julie, Bevin, and all. Thank you, Monica. Kathleen, this was so nurturing and helpful. Thank you both. I'm so glad to hear that, Kathleen. Thank you for sharing that. Levon, thank you so much. I needed the reminders. Okay, good. Cindy says, thank you, Julie and Bevin, for your empowering and caring words that are very precious to me. Oh, thank you for sharing that. EA says, many thanks, Bevin. Julie, this was beautiful. Love to all from France. It's fun to, yeah, we're from all over the world, which is amazing, right? Diane, thank you, Bevin. Such a wonderful inspiration to our, to nurture our senses. Beautiful. So, once again, Bevin, thank you. You are a beautiful light in the world, and I very much am grateful that you came to share in our community today. So it was wonderful to see you. Thank you for all the great information. Really enjoyed this topic, and we learned so much from you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I love our sensitive community. Keep on shining in the world. We love you and need you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.